So to say that I was angry after listening to that turkey guy's interview with Daniel Martel would be an understatement. Not only did he make a complete utter mockery of this case, but he's just made things even worse for people who genuinely care about the children, for Belinda, for Chelsea. And I truly hope that neither of them actually watched that interview, because it was just disgusting. This guy is supposed to be a police officer or is a former police officer. But, are we talking traffic cop? Because for starters, I've never seen a worse sycophant when it comes to someone investigating someone who is a suspect in a case. These comments that he's been cleared, what utter BS. If RCMP have actually cleared Daniel Martel, then they're a bunch of clowns. And I actually don't believe that is the case. If they have cleared everybody that was on the property, and they're also saying no sign of abduction, and they're bringing dogs in at the cost of thousands of dollars, does that really make sense to you? I call BS. In fact, I call BS on most of what Daniel said throughout that interview. It seems that he has now gone for Durwood's strategy of just outright lies rather than just insinuations. I noticed he was still working with the insinuations, but he seems to be emboldened by Durwood's success at some levels with his outward lies. So Daniel seems to be trying that for himself. I found myself at one point in time listening to that interview and asking myself, is someone in Daniel's family paying this turkey guy to do this? Because he was coaching Daniel throughout the entire interview. And he was giving him leading questions. He spent the entire time helping Daniel to remember what his story was meant to be. What does that achieve? Now, I'm just going to put this out here right now. I normally keep a professional distance when it comes to cases like this. So I tend not to make contact with people who are connected to the case. I tend to make exceptions in that if someone has no connections with any individuals who could be considered suspects, then yes, I will communicate with them in the background. But I'm not going to subject them to coming on my channel. I'm not going to take advantage of them to try and get clicks and views. However, right now, I would really like to see someone from Team Malaya come forward. And I'm putting it that way because that seems to be the way that Daniel is operating right now. He has all these hanger-oners, like Dimwit, who are pushing the same narrative, trying to push the fact that Daniel is innocent and trying to make Malaya look really, really bad. So I'm just going to put it out here right now. If Cheryl or Hayley or someone connected to Malaya wants a platform where they can safely say their piece, then my email address is in the description for this video. Feel free to email me and I would be more than happy to allow you to say your piece on my channel. Because right now, the lies are stacking up. Not only are the lies stacking up, but the accusations and the insinuations against Malaya are stacking up. And this is not doing anything to help find Lily and Jack. See these two faces here on the screen? Lily Sullivan, 6, missing since May the 2nd. Jack Sullivan, 4, missing since May the 2nd. That's why we are here. I don't give a damn about Daniel Martel. I don't give a damn about his feelings. I really don't care about Durwood's feelings. I don't care for their lives. I'm here for Jack and Lily. I'm here for Belinda. I'm here for Chelsea. And I'm even here for Cody. Because those three had nothing to do with the disappearance of these children. And each one of them is feeling pain because these children are missing and they don't know where they are. I got the distinct impression that part of the reasoning behind Daniel's interview was that he was hoping to basically shut down any accusations against him, shut down any chatter about his guilt, to shut down anyone from considering actually putting tips through to the RCMP or continuing to talk about this case. He claims that he's doing this to continue getting the case out in the public, but when I listened to that interview, the impression I got was that he was trying to beat us down, trying to convince us that this case is never going to be solved. We might as well walk away now. Trying to convince us that unless we live in Nova Scotia, unless we live in the immediate vicinity, then we're just fools if we think we're going to call in any tips, and we really shouldn't do so. His claim is that he is doing this for Jack and Lily. But my takeaway from that entire interview is that he wants all this to go away. Now, there was a part of me that, after listening to that interview, wanted to walk away and start putting more time into covering other cases. But then I realised that way evil wins. That way these children don't have people to fight for them. Belinda doesn't have someone to fight for her. Chelsea doesn't have someone to fight for her. I'm not someone who quits. So I'm going to get louder. I'm going to fight harder. And I know I'm not the only person, the only channel who is working on things behind the scenes to try and help bring justice for these children, to try and help get these children found. And I bet that drives Daniel nuts, not knowing what's going on in the background, not knowing what it is that could expose all his lies thoroughly and see a resolution to this case. Now, having got that off my chest, let's get back to talking about this interview that Daniel did. Now, I could go through and do my usual thing where I just push on for an hour or so, doing an analysis of what he's said and really hammer it in that way. But I'm going to break it up into topics. So some of the videos will be shorter than others. But I think given how hard he tried to push this ridiculous narrative of his, given how hard he's trying to shut us all down and basically put an end to all this, then I'm going to give it the time it deserves. As in, I'm really going to focus on this interview of Daniel's. You're going to see multiple videos done on this interview because I'm going to do far more than just discuss the interview and analyse his statements. I'm really going to tear this whole interview to shreds because That's what it deserves. I'm going to take the time to make sure that I am focusing on facts, to make sure that I am focusing on the truth, and to expose every single one of Daniel Martel's lies. Of course, by all means, if you can produce a statement from the RCMP telling me that Daniel's been cleared, Janie's been cleared and Malaya's been cleared, then I will pull these videos. I will take a new stance on this case. But I can tell you that's not going to happen. So on that note, let's jump into the first part of this interview.
Everybody, welcome to the show. Daniel Martel, the stepfather for Lily and Jack. Welcome, Daniel. How are you doing, my man? How's it going?
I'm still staying strong there, Daniel. I mean, every day is a new day.
Yeah.
Every day, you wake up and it's a new day. New hope. Just keep going forward.
First of all, the smirk on his face while he's saying that to this turkey guy, every day's a new day. I'm so happy. He is reveling in the attention here. Throughout this entire interview, he really struggles to hide his mirth at being the centre of attention, at having found someone who is so willing to believe everything that comes out of his mouth. But let's talk about this every day is a new day statement. When you're talking about missing children, every day is not a new day. Every day is another day with no answers. Every day is another day of torture, wondering where they are. If you follow Belinda on Facebook, you will see every day, you will know precisely how long those children have been missing. Because it's not a new day. It is the same torture that began over 150 days ago now. When someone is talking about every day being a new day, that is someone who has experienced something that they are now putting behind them. Talking about every day being a new day is talking about the healing process. There's no healing process while these children are still missing. This is just another example of Daniel coming up with a statement during an interview that he suddenly thinks sounds really good. And it makes him sound so profound. So then he's going to keep pulling it out for a while, because in his mind that worked.
Immediately jumped in the vehicle, surveyed all the areas, many dirt roads, many culverts as I could, and waited for the police to get there. And as soon as I noticed they weren't there, I immediately jumped right in the vehicle and surveyed all the area, every dirt road, every culvert that I could find. As soon as I seen they were missing, I jumped right in the vehicle and I did every dirt road and searched every culvert.
It's just classic Daniel, really, isn't it? It's like he comes up with a line and he keeps using it until he forgets about it. He doesn't keep these in his head very long. He only uses it for a cluster of interviews, and then if there's a break in between those interviews, he has to come up with new, inspired quotes that he can use. Now, I have to confess my ignorance with regards to one particular topic, and that is with regards to rugs. I have to admit that I've only ever had Mary Jane. So I am quite ignorant. However, I was covering a case earlier this year. It was actually around the same time that Jack and Lily went missing, and it was an Australian girl, Phoebe Bishop, who went missing, and then the people responsible were arrested about 3 weeks after she went missing, and her remains were found. But after they were arrested, the owner of the house where they'd been renting took mainstream media in and showed them the inside of the house. And what was really interesting was that everything on the inside of the house was covered in like black smudges. Walls, curtains, furniture. And I didn't know what that was. But someone commented that it had something to do with maths, if you get the gist. So I'm just wondering, because those curtains behind Daniel, they look kind of black and smudgy. Is that just me?
Yeah, no, I hear you. I know there's been some activity recently. There's been some dogs in the area. They've been doing some searches. I know that that has been on your property. They looked at your property. So I know that there's still movement in the case. Right now, are you confident in where the investigation is going?
Um, it's a little bit different from my point of view versus, the public eye. But right now, I'm fairly happy with what they're doing. I mean, they're pulling out all the stops. I mean, cadaver dogs took a long, or human remains dogs took a long time to come in, but I mean, everything's falling into place like it should. It's just the amount of time that's passed. It's just, for some people, it's not fast enough.
Did anyone else find themselves watching this interview and continually wanting to wipe that smirk off his face? Just made me so irate. So the question is, how confident are you with where the investigation is going? And we just get a whole heap of BS from him again. But when you look at what is underneath what he's saying, it's quite interesting. But I'll look at that after I've gone through it all. So you can tell he's pretty much making it up as he goes along because of all the pauses and just the lack of fluency in what he's saying. And I think it's because of this that he's giving himself away. So first of all, you get the and then you get this smirk on his face. And he says it's a little bit different from my point of view versus, the public eye. And as he starts saying it's a little bit different, he does this thing, which I've not seen him do in other interviews, where he puts his hand up sort of almost under his arm. It's a bit of a soothing action. So there's something about this investigation that's actually causing him anxiety, in my opinion. I'm guessing that what he's actually trying to convey here when he says, it's a little bit different from my point of view, is that he's trying to push this narrative that he works so hard to push about being an insider in the investigation and knowing all the inner details of the investigation. Trying to give people the impression that they're keeping him basically up to date with everything about their investigation. So he thinks that when he's saying it's different from my point of view, that he's convincing people it's different because I've got an inside perspective, so I know so much more than everybody else about what's going on. But there's a bit of leakage there, because basically at this point in time, the public are starting to feel frustrated, starting to feel that it's taking too long and they want some resolution. Because their perspective is they want Lily and Jack found, they want a resolution to this. And he's saying that his perspective is different. It's different from his point of view. I'd imagine it would be different from his point of view. And this is what I'm saying about leakage. Because from his point of view, the fact that it's taking so long has got him convinced that he's basically got it over them. His comment about being 100% certain that the dogs wouldn't find anything, that tells me that he thinks that the RCMP aren't going to close this case. That Jack and Lily will never be found and there'll never be a resolution. But then his body language tells a different story again, because he's showing a little bit of anxiety. On one hand, you get that smirk because he does think he's beaten them, but then there seems to be that underlying bit of anxiety that maybe they will close this case down. Maybe they will reach a resolution, which he doesn't want to happen. And then he makes this statement about being fairly happy with what they're doing. They're pulling out all the stops. And he starts to talk about the cadaver dogs. Now, this is coming from a guy who is now pushing the narrative that the children never wandered off into the woods, that nobody on their property did anything, and that, in his opinion, Malaya organised for the children to be abducted. He's basically adopted Durwood's ridiculous story, but he's basically hinting at it because I've mentioned this in another video. I suspect that at the same time that Malaya was firing shots at Belinda for apparently speaking about her online, I suspect that Daniel has also been warned off speaking about Malaya out of turn. So instead, he just has to imply these things rather than say them outright. But we know exactly what he's talking about. So his current narrative is that someone has the children and they are safe and happy somewhere. And yet he's turning around and saying he's happy with what the RCMP are doing. They're pulling out all the stops. Now, if you truly believed that someone had those children, why would you be happy with them bringing in cadaver dogs onto your property? Because the thing is, them bringing those dogs in is saying, we firmly believe that whatever happened to these children happened on this property and that they are no longer alive. So he should actually be, based on what he's claiming is what he believes, he should actually be rather annoyed with the investigation and be saying, I wish that they would not waste money doing this, but instead put their time and their money into something that's actually going to help find the children. If you believe someone has these children, you're not going to be asking for months for them to bring the dogs in. You're not going to be happy with the direction of the investigation when they bring dogs in onto your property, which is basically suggesting and giving the impression to the public as well that they believe that there was foul play involved with whatever happened to these children. Now, someone probably needs to explain to the guy that the term cadaver dog is exactly the same as human remains detection dogs. It's just different terminology. So there is nothing wrong with referring to them as cadaver dogs. Now, in terms of they're pulling out all the stops, he qualifies that by referring to the cadaver dogs, but then he goes on to, well, they took a long time to come in. Well, this guy has claimed that he's been cleared several months ago by RCMP. He's claimed that he believes these children are, someone has these children somewhere. So why would he be concerned over the amount of time it took for the dogs to come in? And then he does that lick thing. This is something I've seen in all of his interviews, and I am going to watch it more closely throughout this entire interview. But to me, it seems to be showing some sort of internal conflict, whether it is a form of anxiety, he's showing that something is making him anxious, or he's showing that actually whatever he's said he doesn't really believe in, it's just a complete utter bit of BS, or he's lying. And I mean, it makes sense. Why would he give a damn if it took a while for the dogs to come in? If he believes that there's no purpose for them to actually be there. His whole stance that he's putting forward about these dogs is so illogical, and it's just a complete utter load of BS. I'm really not buying that soggy bread. If you think the children were abducted, why would you care how long it took for them to bring the dogs in? Now he goes on with the statement, but I mean, everything is falling into place like it should. But as he says it, he brings his hand up again, like up to his chest, sort of tucking under his arm. And then, as he says, falling into place, he even brings his hand up to his face. That to me suggests that he's actually feeling a little bit anxious about the RCMP bringing the dogs in and focusing on the property. With that one sentence about things falling into place, you've seen 3 separate actions from him which indicate some level of anxiety over the direction that the investigation is going. He's not happy that they're bringing in the dogs. But at the same time, the words that he's using, it's an interesting choice of words. Everything is falling into place like it should. That gives the impression that they're going out of this status quo and moving towards a resolution. It gives the impression that they're finally discovering things, discovering evidence, or discovering information that is getting them closer to a resolution. But that makes absolutely no sense, because if, as Daniel believes, the children are off somewhere, someone has the children and they're alive, then bringing the dogs in would not qualify as everything is falling into place like it should. I think he's pulled that statement out to try and make it sound like he is confident with the investigation. He has insider knowledge and he's confident that the investigators know what they're doing and they're getting closer to a resolution. But the facts point the opposite direction. He couldn't possibly be confident when their focus is on looking for the remains of these children that he claims aren't deceased. So is this leakage? Is this him basically telling us that, well, it's okay that the dogs are searching because I know they're not on the property because I know where they are? Everything's falling into place because once they've searched the property and can't find the children, then they're going to stop thinking that they're somewhere here and they're going to stop looking at us. You know, saying everything is falling into place like it should implies that you've planned for a particular outcome. That the way you plan things to go down is happening the way you expected. That, coupled with his statement that he's 100% certain that the dogs won't find anything, suggests to me that he believes that the children are in the perfect location, that RCMP have no idea where they are, and that they'll come in, they'll search the property with the dogs, they'll go away, and then no one will find the children. Now he goes on to say, it's just the amount of time that's passed, it's just, for some people, it's not fast enough. And again, after he says the amount of time that's passed, he gets a smirk on his face again. He's pleased with the fact that it's been 5 months and the RCMP haven't resolved the case. Note he says, for some people it's not fast enough. He's not saying for him it's not fast enough. It's just a random sentence being thrown in there. His brain won't let him say that for him it's not fast enough, them working on this, and it's not fast enough that they haven't found the children, because he doesn't believe that. So again, we don't get the I statement here at all. He just says, for some people. That implies for people other than him. For him, he doesn't care that it's taking a long time. In fact, based on his smile, he's quite happy that it's taking a long time. To him, that makes him think that he's won. Now, I know I sound quite negative towards Daniel, but honestly, based on all his lies, based on Janie's lies, based on the inconsistencies, I mean, this guy has given us so much to work from in the past 5 months that it's pretty clear what's going on. And I realise that there'll be people that listen to this interview and basically won't think to apply any critical thinking or logic, and will just listen to what this Turkey guy and Daniel are saying and take it all at face value. But honestly, when you start to pull it apart, when you start to have a look at what is really being said, when you start to look at the body language, when you start to consider the lies, he's not doing himself any favours here whatsoever. He's just making a mockery of the case, showing utter disrespect for Jack and Lily, and making himself look even more ridiculous and even more guilty. At the end of the day, if this guy was genuine, he would be saying, it's not fast enough. If he genuinely cared and he wanted Jack and Lily found, he would be expressing what everybody else who actually cares about these children is expressing. That it's time that these children were found. It's time that there was an end to all this. But he's not expressing any concerns from him. He's just saying some people think it's not fast enough. I honestly feel that with the interviews that we've heard in the last couple of months, that he's completely forgotten about the fact that he's meant to be concerned for Lily and Jack. I mean, at the start of this interview, this Turkey guy referred to him as their stepfather, which pretty much nobody does anymore because they don't offer him that respect. He doesn't deserve that respect. And yet that went totally over his head, and he's not showing any concern over the fact that they're missing. Some people think it's not fast enough, but apparently not him. I just want to acknowledge also, it is a classic sycophant move for this Turkey guy to be referring to 1407 as your property, as in Daniel's property. Not Janie's property, not his mother's property, not where you live or your house. I would refer to your house because that's where he lives. But your property, he's implying Daniel is the one who owns the property. He's the man about the place. The guy's massaging Daniel's ego from the very beginning.
Yeah, no, I understand. You know, it's a sad situation. You know, Jack and Lily went missing in May. You know, I couldn't imagine how, you know, you guys were feeling in the moment of having the kids missing and then somewhat like the entire world turning against you. How has that been for you guys? Has it kind of calmed down as things gotten worse here recently?
No, Daniel, it never calms down. Some of those Facebook groups, they're absolutely relentless every day.
Honestly, they're like a pair of horses doing that mutual grooming thing. Poor you, Daniel. I feel sorry for you. You're going through these children being missing and the whole world is being so mean to you. Oh, I know, Daniel. So let me back up here. So first of all, this Turkey guy is clearly trying to manipulate Daniel to get him to keep talking. But he's doing it in this sickening way that is validating all this BS that Daniel's been doing. The entire world has been turning against you. You know, I can't imagine what it must be like for you. Well, let's look at this logically. And that is that he's brought this on himself. This guy cannot give up. He's been coming out and doing interviews and coming out and commenting on Facebook since day one. Because for him, it's all about control. And he needs to control the narrative. And to him, that means being front and centre the entire time. And I also think that he enjoys the attention. So this Turkey guy gives him the validation by saying, you're going through the kids missing and the entire world turning against you, and has it calmed down? Now, the last reaction you would expect to see from someone is laughing. Maybe a bit of a snort to show that, yeah, that's not going to happen. But not laughing. He finds it amusing. And he's like, no, Daniel, it never calms down. Some of these Facebook groups, they're absolutely relentless every day. And then I kind of paused it in the wrong spot there, but his tongue comes out again. So he finds it amusing that he's getting all this attention. Note what he's done though. Like I said, there's a bit of mutual grooming going on here. You have this Turkey guy doing the I feel so sorry for you, I'm giving you sympathy, I'm acknowledging how hard it is for you, I'm acknowledging that I'm on your side. And what does Daniel do? First of all, this is when we start seeing the repeated use of the interviewer's name. And no, Daniel. And he does this excessively throughout the interview, because he's being just as manipulative back. When someone is using someone's name excessively in a conversation, it is manipulation. He's trying to create this impression of this strong personal connection between them. We're friends now. You can trust me. I'm being honest with you because I'm using your name. I'm showing you that I respect you, I trust you. I'm basically manipulating the heck out of you. And honestly, either this Turkey guy is a good actor or he's just completely oblivious to the fact. But basically what Daniel is doing here, he is doing his best to convince this guy that he can be trusted, that they're friends now, that, he's this really personable kind of person. It is pure manipulation. But the other thing he's doing to manipulate here, now, when you look at the other interviews he does, his main thing that he talks about with mainstream media, that last interview, the CBC interview, he was talking about the way people analyse everything he does. He was specifically referring to YouTube. But here, because the interview is with a YouTube channel creator, he's putting it all on Facebook because he doesn't want to badmouth YouTubers to this guy who is basically massaging his ego in the biggest way imaginable. So for the purpose of this interview, he's laying all the blame on Facebook and not talking about all the people on YouTube who are basically calling him out for what he is. But honestly, trying to show sympathy to Daniel because people are criticising him, well, this case isn't about Daniel. This case is about Lily and Jack. So he needs to take it on the chin. If he is going to insert himself, and if he is going to insert himself in a way where he is basically continually lying, continually changing his story, continually contradicting things that he's said previously, then he deserves no sympathy. The guy is trolling Facebook and trolling YouTube and inserting himself all over the place, but not to basically plead for people to help find Jack and Lily, he inserts himself to defend his story. He inserts himself to defend himself. When do you ever see him joining in a conversation to talk about how desperately he wishes that Jack and Lily would be found? So I find it quite sickening when I hear this Turkey guy speaking to him like he deserves sympathy because people are calling him out for his BS. Now, yeah, maybe it is an interviewing strategy for this Turkey guy. But honestly, I would never sell my soul like that.
Yeah, and I mean, it appears to me, at least, when I look through the RCMP documents, I look at what the investigators have done and what they have said flat out, that sounds like they've cleared you guys. Have they told you guys that specifically, that they do not believe you guys are suspects?
There is absolutely nothing in those documents that would suggest that any of these people have been cleared. I don't know how this guy interprets it that way, other than if he's got absolutely no critical thinking skills, no capacity for simple logic. And I know that in this instance, it's not him just trying to butter up Daniel, because when these documents were released, someone actually mentioned to me, check out this guy. He's claiming that everyone's been cleared now. And I listened to about 5 minutes of him talking about it and was just like, this guy's a complete utter fool. He genuinely believes that the documents have cleared these people, but they do not. I'm not going to go into that in depth again because, honestly, I know that the people who are capable of critical thinking and logic understand that these people are not cleared. And the people who are pushing this same narrative as this Turkey guy, no matter what I say, they're still going to claim that Daniel's been cleared. It is not the truth. There is absolutely nothing in those documents that would indicate this. The claims that, he passed the polygraph test. No, he did not pass the polygraph test. There were a few questions that they're saying he was truthful about, but then they redact it immediately after the word truthful, meaning that they've basically redacted a comma or something similar connected to the word truthful, which means that half that sentence is redacted. And we don't know all the questions that were asked. So, no, just because the word truthful appears in half a sentence, the rest of which is redacted, relating to questions, all of which were redacted, that does not clear someone. I know people have gotten hung up on the comment after the discussion of the polygraph results, the comment that was made by the author of the application, not the person administering the polygraph results. So the comment was made, at this point in the investigation, Jack and Lily's disappearance is not believed to be criminal in nature. I do not have reasonable grounds to believe a criminal offence has occurred. Now, why is that in that document? Now, this person writing this document is not at the centre of the investigation. She's only working with the information that she's been given for the purpose of creating this document to make a records request. Now, here's the thing. Here's why she is saying this. By classifying the case as a missing persons investigation at the beginning, that meant that all they had to do to get any records was create a record access request. They will have kept this case classified as a missing persons case as opposed to a criminal investigation for as long as they could, for this reason. Once it becomes a criminal investigation, then they are actually putting in applications to get warrants. And for that, they have the burden of proof. They need to prove probable cause to get those access to records or whatever it is. There is a much, much higher burden of proof once you are actually doing a warrant request as opposed to a request for access to documents. The Missing Persons Act basically essentially says if you need it, then you just tell the judge you need it. You tell them why you need it. I need it to help with this investigation. You get it. In other words, so if it's classed as a criminal investigation and you want access to cell phone records, then you have to come up with probable cause. You have to show why you consider this person to be a suspect. You've got to have a decent amount of evidence to convince the judge that there is something on those phones that is going to help prove guilt. As opposed to if it's a missing persons case still, you've just got to say, well, it's possible that looking at these phones may confirm the timeline that they are telling me. So the statement that she made at this point in the investigation, their disappearance is not believed to be criminal in nature, that is basically to reassure the judge that, hey, we're not cheating, we're not making use of the Missing Persons Act to get things without a warrant. We still believe it's a missing persons investigation as opposed to a criminal investigation. Because once it is escalated to a criminal investigation, while they are still allowed to use any records that they gained through the Missing Persons Act, it suddenly becomes a heck of a lot harder for them to access any records, because at that point they have to show probable cause. We know that after these record requests were made, that the reward money was put on the table. That reward money is for information relating to criminal cases, to high-profile cases and cold cases. That shows that sometime after these documents were penned, clearly when they got all the information they needed, they then turned around and said, yes, this is a criminal investigation. They're not going to bring in the dogs and have the dogs check the property multiple times over several days if it's not a criminal investigation. So this Turkey guy is just full of it. And it certainly makes me think that if he was ever in law enforcement, that he was probably a traffic cop. There is no way someone could be so wrong about an investigation if they had been a detective themselves at some point in time.
I don't know if I should say this or not, but they came out and told me and Mom privately, like probably almost 3 months ago now, that we know that you guys had nothing to do with it, and we know that you guys have no involvement with the disappearance.
Yeah. Well,
And it wasn't just one investigator that told us; it was multiple different times privately. So it wasn't just one investigator out of the blue that said it.
And out comes the tongue again, because he's speaking complete and utter BS here. He can't even speak fluently here. His sentences are so broken up. And notice how he starts with, "We know that you guys had nothing to do with it," before he then follows through with, "We know you guys have no involvement with the disappearance." It is not referring to children just going missing. It is basically that thing that happened. He tries to convince people of this BS, but he shoots himself in the foot every time. And then the attempt to over-persuade. Oh, it wasn't just one person, it was multiple people it was multiple different occasions, privately. So it wasn't just one investigator out of the blue that said it. You know, he's overselling it. He is trying to be overly persuasive, which of course is a good sign that someone is lying. The other good sign that someone is lying is when they tell you that investigators are saying, "We don't think you've got anything to do with these children being missing, but we're going to bring the dogs in and the human remains detection dogs in and search your property." If they thought these guys had absolutely nothing to do with the disappearance of Jack and Lily, are they not going to spend all the money to bring those dogs in? They're not going to take the time to bring those dogs in. I mean, at the end of the day, what Daniel is basically trying to imply here is that it's an abduction. Now, if the RCMP believed it was an abduction, rather than spending all that money bringing the dogs in, they would be putting that money into extra staffing to follow those leads. But, like I've said multiple times before, they have, I believe, 8 dogs for the whole of Canada. It is not something that you just do on a whim, bringing the dogs in. You do that when you have strong leads in terms of locations. When you have strong leads in terms of something that says, yes, we definitely need to check this property. And let's just dabble in Daniel's little fantasy world for a moment. Let's say that those children had been abducted and the RCMP had decided that's what the case. So they, in their minds, they've cleared Daniel, Janie and Malaya. They're not going to tell them that they've cleared them, because if they believe the children have been abducted, and if they believe that there's a possibility the children might be still alive, they're not going to tell anyone anything that would tip those people off to the fact that that is what they believe. Telling the people who were the last people to see the children that we've cleared you, that would tip off these hypothetical abductors. That actually that's the avenue that they're going down with their investigation. Not even the Keystone Cops would be that stupid. You know, I've mentioned before that one of the things that Daniel does is he adapts his behaviour, he adapts his narrative. And what he has done here, like I said at the beginning of this video, he's trying Durwood's strategy of just basically lying outright and expecting people to believe him. There's no insinuations here. It's just the outright lie. I mean, sure, if RCMP come out tomorrow and offer a statement that they've cleared everyone who was on the property, then maybe I'd believe him. But even then, I'd be questioning what the heck was going on. And we know that RCMP are not going to come out and say that they've cleared everyone who was on the property, because that's just not going to happen. But Daniel's learnt how easy it is to steer people. He's learnt that there are a lot of fools following this case who don't have the capacity for critical thinking, who don't think things through logically, and who believe everything they are told. He's seen now how easy it is to put out a story and have people believe you. So he's trying that on. And sadly, there's going to be people who believe that. So there's going to be more people coming into comments and chats on people's videos and attacking content creators and attacking commenters who dare to question Daniel's narrative.
And has it always been that way, or was there a moment, maybe perhaps in the beginning, where you felt that that wasn't the case? Maybe perhaps their eyes were on you.
I'm not sure. I think for the first month they were pretty dead set that we need to investigate Daniel a lot.
Mhm.
I mean, with the amount of interrogations I did, and with the sheer amount of, well, I mean, I was pretty upfront with everything. I was cooperative with everything, so it kind of made it easier for them too, right? They didn't have to get any warrants. They didn't have to dig for anything. I mean, I handed them my phone. I asked for the polygraphs. I mean, I asked for everything.
So he's going back to that old story of, oh, I handed them my phone, I asked for the polygraph test. Even though he's forgotten that we have accounts from mainstream media articles where they are basically saying that it was the RCMP that seized their phones. It wasn't volunteered, it was asked for by the RCMP. Likewise, we have records of the RCMP choosing to do these polygraph exams. We have records in mainstream media of them saying basically that, it was an RCMP thing. Again, Daniel is trying to push his own narrative. And he's forgotten that even he, at one point in time, admitted that they took his phone. He didn't hand it over, they took his phone. Right there, he's operating under the principle of if you tell people something often enough, they will just start to believe it. Well, we have had no word at all from the RCMP that, oh, we did the polygraph exams because Daniel Martel asked us to do polygraph exams with everybody. Like BS. And then the comment, the phone. Like RCMP's going to come out and go, yeah, Daniel decided to hand us his phone really early on. I have to say though, if, say, hypothetically, he did say to officers, here, take my phone, check it out. Oh, please, make me do a polygraph exam. My thoughts on that would be that he is definitely showing signs of sociopathy. Quite possibly crossing over the line towards psychopathy. This guy is one of the most manipulative people that I have come across in all the cases I've seen. Frighteningly so. So, if, hypothetically, he had offered up his phone and offered to do polygraph tests, that would have been out of a need to control, out of a sense that he could still beat them, that he could pass the polygraph test even though he knew he would be lying, that he knew there would be nothing on his phone because he didn't take his phone with him at any point in time. If, as it appears, something happened to those children on that property, then there's probably not going to be anything on his phone that is going to incriminate him. So if he did, even though, like I said, he himself in other interviews has said they asked for his phone. We've seen articles where they've basically said, RCMP said that they took his phone. But let's say he did offer up his phone, it would be because his phone is not going to show anything in connection to what happened. But like I said, he told mainstream media that the RCMP confiscated his phone. So if he's lying in terms of, I offered my phone, and then turning around and saying that it was confiscated, then, you know, what makes you think that there's any truth in this claim that I asked for the RCMP to do a polygraph test on me? They're not going to waste money doing things just because someone asks them to, especially not polygraph exams. That would have been done because they decided to do it, not because he asked them to do it. I find it highly unlikely in the first place that he did ask them.
He says both his cell phone and that of his estranged wife were confiscated and searched by investigators.
They've done a full background check as much as they could possibly do. And
Yeah, I mean, usually when somebody cooperates as much as you guys have,
Yeah.
and law enforcement is looking into it, if they're looking at you guys as some form of suspect, and if you're looking at somebody hard enough and you're pulling all the stops and you're not finding something, that's usually because something happened there.
I'm wondering if this Turkey guy has actually watched any of the media footage or has actually properly read any of the documents, because he's making some gross assumptions there. He is, for starters, accepting what Daniel says as truth without questioning it. And now he's making this massive, massive assumption that RCMP didn't find anything suspicious about Daniel, and that, yes, he must have cooperated heaps, and, well, yeah, they must have cleared him. You're pulling all the stops and you're not finding anything. Well, how would he know they're not finding anything? Is he really that naive to believe Daniel when Daniel says, oh, they told us months ago, secretly, that we're cleared? In fact, we had every person from the RCMP in Nova Scotia and every person from every RCMP office in the entire of Canada come and personally tell me in private that they don't think we did anything. I mean, seriously, pull the other one, it plays Jingle Bells. So I know I haven't gotten very far into this interview in this video, but like I said, this guy wants us all, Daniel, wants us all to just walk away and forget about the case. He thinks that this interview is going to convince people that they shouldn't bother looking at him anymore because he's not a suspect. He thinks the interview is going to convince people to just forget about the case because it's going to be a cold case, because there's nothing else to talk about, nothing to see here, folks. He thinks that by doing this interview, he's going to make it all go away. Well, guess what? I'm just going to get louder and I'm going to become more insistent. I'm not going anywhere. I am here until Lily and Jack are found. I am here until whoever is responsible for whatever happened to these children is held accountable. You can't gaslight me into quitting. You can't BS me with this sort of stuff, expect me to believe it, and make me think, okay, well, you know, there's nothing to look at here anymore. Like I said, I believe this interview is making complete utter mockery of this case. It is showing complete utter disrespect for Lily, for Jack, for Belinda, for Chaucer, for anyone else who genuinely cares about these children. So I am going to go through the entire interview and I am going to expose all the lies and show it for exactly what it is. So, on that note, thanks for listening. I hope you will come back tomorrow for the next part in this series. In the meantime, thanks for listening. Please hit the like button and please leave a comment below. Thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Give a fuck about